Okay, so Abe, what items do people need to check before doing a CPR?
Okay, if it's existing homes, then there's very little to check except to make sure that there's enough land area to allow the homes to be rebuilt in the event of a fire or natural disaster. For example, there are some lots in town, they have R5 and it's 6,000 square feet, and their grandfather legal non-conforming, so they already have 2 homes on the property. Well, if you went to the city and said, hey, if my house burns down, one of them, can I rebuild it? And they'll tell you no, because you only allow 1 house for 5,000 square feet. And you say, but I got permits. And the city guy will say, yeah, but their grandfather legal non-conforming. So if you can't rebuild it, then you can CPR them, by the way, which is really weird. Because the state will say, if it was legal at the time it was built, we'll let you condominiumize. So you can transfer title. But then the question is, if you go to the city and say, will you let me rebuild? They'll tell you no. So then people go, wait a minute, how come one government agency lets me condominiumize, but the other government agency won't let me rebuild? That's because the city and the state are not in sync with each other. And that's true with, I believe, all the counties. So you have to be careful about lot size. So as I mentioned, in R5 zone, if you have 7,500 square feet, then you can have a duplex. If you have 10,000 square feet or larger, then you can have 2 homes detached or attached, depending on your personal preference. So that's the first thing you have to look at, is do I have enough land area to rebuild the home?
Okay, and then the utilities?
Utilities, usually they're already in existence if it's an existing building. But if it's brand new, now you got a problem. Let's say you have a vacant lot, 10,000 square feet. They told you can't subdivide, but the land's 10,000 R5, so you can build 2 houses. Then we always check for water availability to see if there's adequate water pressure. Then we check for sewer availability because it may not be available. Example, in Kailua right now, they're doing a massive capital improvements project. And they will not allow a second house to be built on a lot because they're tearing up the roads right now. So when they're finished, it appears that you can rebuild a second house or get a permit for a second home. Right now, you can only get a permit for 1 house. In some areas like Lanikai, there's a moratorium. You can't ever build because it's so maxed out. So that's a problem. So the sewer, water, and then you have fire protection. Where's the nearest fire hydrant? Because a house cannot be more than 150 feet away from the nearest fire hydrant to the farthest point on the house on the lot. So if it's more than 150 feet, then usually we've been able to get the fire department to allow us to have a sprinkler system in the home instead of us bringing in a brand new fire hydrant. Now, if you got 10 homes going up, then 10 homes for a sprinkler system might cost you about 80 to 90,000. Well, a fire hydrant might cost you 50 or 60,000. I don't know the exact cost. Depends on the run and all that. So it may be cost effective then to bring in a fire hydrant. But you have to check with the fire department and to see if there's adequate fire protection. And you also have to check with a plumber and check for water pressure and all that other stuff. So a lot of these things people have to watch out for. Just because you got land doesn't mean you can build.
Yeah, but like an existing apartment building, someone should not be any challenges of doing a CPR of.
Well, it used to be, but now they've corrected it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. So here's what happened historically, real briefly. In the mid-1980s, when the city changed from Comprehensive Zoning Code, what they call a CZC, to the Land Use Ordinance, which is the LUO, they made a change so that the setbacks and the parking requirements were totally different from the old code, which was much more liberal than the new code. While all the old buildings that were built according to the old setbacks and footprints, they were legal non-conforming. So all these old condominium buildings, like huge ones, they were all legal non-conforming. And they could not be rebuilt, so the bank said, you know what, we're not going to loan you any money then. So the Mortgage Bankers Association and the Board of Realtors and other groups went to the council and said, you made this change in the land use ordinance, but you've now made all our buildings legal non-conforming. We can't get mortgages. So then the land use ordinance was changed, and there's one sentence in the LUO that says that legal non-conforming buildings may not be rebuilt except in conformity with the current code, except if you convert it to a condominium or cooperative. And that one little sentence was very crucial in allowing the old homes, buildings to be rebuilt in the event of fire or natural disaster. Now, there's a very stringent rules on it. You have to have 3 or more units attached. It has to be an apartment zone. It has to be an apartment building. And then you can rebuild according to the old footprint. not the new footprint. And then, of course, if you condominiumize, then you can rebuild them because then the city said we'll recognize it. So if you had, I guess we're running out of time, huh?
No, it's
We
okay.
continue?
Finish it.
Okay. So if the old buildings were not converted to a condo or co-op, then you're stuck. And if it burns down or it's destroyed by earthquake. So you got to make sure you can CPR that thing before it's destroyed.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we come back, we'll talk about the steps of the CPR process.